Where's my season? Where are my gauntlets? Where's my axe? If you want the answers to these and many other questions, stick around for the first ever episode of The Flocked. Or something else if I decided the name is indeed too cringe and decide to change it. But stick around anyway. Okay, so let's explain how this whole thing is going to work. We're going to go over each part of the system, or layer of the system if you want to call it that. We're going to explain how the system works, or the part of the system works. We're going to go over how it compares to its equivalent in the old system. We're going to go over how the change, or I guess how the new system works for the community as a whole, and how it affects me, or what my personal take is on it, okay? After all that, we're going to give some closing thoughts on the whole thing, and I'm going to go over whether Riot managed to reach or come closer to their goals, which are stated right here, or not. Keep one thing in mind, we're in a beta season right now, which is... I waited like a couple of weeks since the beta started, so we have more data on it, and just gathering information and my personal experience and what I heard from other players. We're gonna have like a more reasonable take on this whole thing, but keep in mind it is beta, so a lot of things are bound to change. So... especially numbers, they clearly stated a lot of the numbers are going to change, but yeah, keep that in mind. And yeah, let's move on to the first part. Okay, so the first part, or the first layer of the system, are daily rumbles, and how they work, as the name implies, once daily you can enter a gauntlet-esque thing. So you pay an entry fee of, right now it's 650 green shards or 200 coins. It's subject to change because it's beta, obviously. I think they said it might be like 2000 green shards in the end. But yeah, essentially I like the entry fee itself. Let's stress that first. I like the entry fee because it's a currency sink for players who play the game too much, like myself. And it slightly increases the buy-in, or the competitive feel of the thing itself. And yeah, so you enter that and you play until you reach either 6 wins or 3 losses. If you reach the max amount of wins, you get a title, and you get trophies scaled up with how many wins you got. And these trophies are what feeds into the rest of the system. This is how the rewards part looks. It's kind of like what are those called, like seasonal passes, which are still in the game, but this is a separate competitive thing. Essentially, this number in the bottom left is how many trophies you have, and yeah, there's three things here, I believe. There's titles, there's badges, and there's the prime glories. Badges and titles are obviously just like prestigious cosmetic rewards. If you want to flex, they're pretty good. Otherwise, what we're going to focus on is the prime glories, and they work like they always have. They give you essentially 3 wins in the next layer of competitiveness. It used to feed into Last Chance Gauntlet, if I'm not mistaken, which would qualify you for the seasonals. Right now, they feed directly into Runeterra Opens, which are the equivalent to the old seasonals, so they have more impact on the system as a whole. But yeah, you get two wins, and that's pretty much it for daily rumbles. The very cool thing about them, so I would say there's like a distinct plus and a distinct minus, which are fairly objective. The plus is we get a lot more cool formats. These are the examples we had in the beta. You have an unlimited champions best of 1, which is really cool. You can play any amount of champions you want. And another cool one is free build, but this one got taken down by Riot. They didn't really give us this one right now. It was pushed back, but they did say they're gonna give it to us at some point. This one is 10 regions, more cards or less cards in the deck, I guess, which sounds super fun. I'm waiting to try it. It sounds really cool. And you have like standard BO3 and BO1, which is sure, whatever. This is a big plus because it incentivizes creativity. It lets you play on the different rule sets, which is always cool. We could all use some change in our lives, or I guess maybe it's just me. But yeah, a huge plus. And then a slight minus, I think, is you can only enter the daily rumbles once per day. I understand why they did it. They did it to, I think, to prevent people from racing to the finish line with spamming it and then getting too many trophies. But I guess you could just make it to where the first in the day gives you trophies and has an entry fee, and then you can play as many as you want for the rest of the day without a cost. Maybe that would be like a midway point. I'm not sure. Either way, my thoughts. It's cool, I guess. I like the fun formats, so that's a big plus. Like I said, especially for me, I like that sort of thing. In general, it's basically as it was. It's not really a big competitive thing. It doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. So yeah, I give it a slight thumbs up, I guess. And that's it. Let's move on to the next part. Okay, so the second layer are Runeterra Opens, and personally, this is, I think, the most problematic part so far from the little testing that we got. But essentially how this works is it's compared to the old seasonals, but you enter the tournament. There is no entry fee or barriers to entry. You can anybody can just join it, which is a big plus. And you plan to get either, it says here 8 wins, but in the one open we had so far it was 9 wins or 3 losses, and you get rewards based on how many wins you get, okay? And the rewards are subject to change, but this is what it has so far. You get 100 points plus titles for maximum to wins. This is just the beta season. After the beta season ends and we go into actual seasons, we will have monetary rewards, and there will be a day 2 after this, and if you get a qualifying score, whatever that means, it's probably like either 9 or 8 wins, you will get qualified for day 2, and then you will get monetary rewards in that one, presumably, right? We don't know because it's the beta and they just gave us a bit of information. And every other Runeterra Open is a World Qualifier Open, with the one distinction being, it says the rewards may vary as well, but the one important difference is that the winner of the World Qualifier Open gets qualified for Worlds. That's pretty obvious. Back to Runeterra Opens. The first one will be 2 weeks after each update, each month, and it's going to be monthly, which means more consistency, which brings us to how it compares to the old system. There are a couple of pluses and a couple of minuses. The pluses are the consistency itself, or how many tournaments we get to play, because this is presumably the pretty big one. Again, it's the one replacing seasonals, so it damn better be good. And yeah, we get one each month, whereas seasonals used to be one every 2 or 3 months, so it is more often, which is obviously good. Another plus is no entry fee, which means we get a wider variety of players, right? It will get, first of all, bigger number of players, but also different types of players. It will help people who aren't necessarily competitive by nature maybe just try it and maybe they like it. It will ease that process and introduce more people to the competitive aspect of the game, which is really good in my opinion. And another plus is there's no lock time frame like the seasonal used to have, where you're like locked in for like what it was, like 9 hours or something. You can just play it whenever during the weekend. Presumably when you have 2 days after beta, you will have to play it on Saturday, but right now you can play it on Saturday or Sunday at any point. All you have to do is, again, once, same as the Runeterra Rumbles, Daily Rumbles, sorry. You enter once, and you can play it once during the weekend, and that's it. Now for the minuses. The barrier of entry being removed, I personally feel that there is a big downside to that as well. I'm not saying that the barrier of entry should exist, but there has to be some way to alleviate the problem if the problem even exists. It depends which direction the game is supposed to or wants to go, right? And that problem is, by definition, I believe, removing the barriers of entry means a less competitive environment by nature. I believe that to be just logical, but I might be wrong, I guess. Because if you dilute the pool with less competitive, or let's call them less incentivized players, then on average, the competitiveness of the whole event and your average game by that is going to go down, right? And a lot of players did report that. Now there's a lot of interference running here because it is the beta seasons. There's no really rewards right now. These are just like vanity rewards, right? Which a lot of people don't care about. Some people do, obviously, but some people don't. But yeah, a lot of people claimed that it was unmotivating. It was just like steamrolling people. It was all over the place. And I don't know how you fix that, but there were specific problems which you can fix to go towards a more competitive environment, if that is the goal. One of them was people said that they've been matched with, it hasn't happened to me, but they've been matched with players of different standing. So for example, they were 2-0, they were matched with an 0-2 player, which shouldn't really happen, right? Presumably there's enough players to always or usually match you with someone with the same score. And they played versus the same player a couple of times, which doesn't really make much sense because if you have like a counter lineup or you just like beat them once, presumably you can beat them again. Not always, obviously, but the idea is not, I think, in these kind of events to not play versus the same player multiple times, right? Another thing is, I'm not sure here because I think this is a negative overall, but yeah, let's discuss it. I used to hate the fact that seasonal had a ladder tie into the tournament because it was a very large grind for a, you can claim it's like a small impact on the tournament, but it was pretty large, right? You were incentivized to do something that is, let's also mention that it's a different format, right? Ladder was best of 1, tournament is best of 3. How you feel about it doesn't matter, but there was a large grind for a decently incentivizing reward, right? Which was the tiebreakers. You could, seasonals was 9 rounds and you could qualify with 7-2 instead of needing 8-1 if you were high up on ladder. And that is gone now. Presumably to qualify into day 2 you will have to get an X amount of wins still, but presumably there will be no tiebreakers. But right now we have a system feeding into it, which is daily rumbles, and you get 2 free buys, 2 free wins at the beginning of the event, right? The impact of it is lessened because the first few rounds are usually the easiest, because if they match you by standings, it's the whole pool is open, whereas if you're 7-0 or something, right, then you're obviously playing versus another player that's 7-0, so on average the game is going to be versus a more competitive player, or a player of an average higher skill level, whatever you want to call it. But yeah, so the reward itself is less impactful, let's say, to the tournament as a whole, but also what does the grind to get that reward look like? I'm not sure. It's playing daily rumbles, which are like, again, not technically in the format which the tournament is, which is either plus or minus. We're not gonna go into that. That depends how you feel. I like it in this sense because it incentivizes different kinds of play. It doesn't matter, but it feeds a smaller system into this system, and it makes you do a very large grind to get what are they called, prime glories, to get something in a tournament which has monetary rewards, which I feel like is basically the ladder tiebreaker thing again, and the amount of work needed for such a small reward is minuscule, which technically means it doesn't matter, but it's still bothering me for some reason. I don't know, there is just something off about it. I don't like how it works. But the bigger problem, I think, is the competitiveness in the whole event, which presumably goes up when there's more stakes and stuff, but I guess only time will tell. That's it for this part. One last thing, we have to see how rewards look. They might be going up or down compared to how it was, but I can't really comment anything on that. So yeah, let's get on. Okay, and for the grand finale, we have Worlds, the most important layer for all us sweaty tryhards out there. This is how it looks, basically. This is the overlay that they've given us on the manifesto, and it looks like we have 3 seasons, each of which, I think they said it's 3 months each, and each of them has 3 tournaments, 2 Runeterra Opens and a Worlds Qualifier Open. The Worlds Qualifier Open, if you win that one in your respective region, it automatically gets you to the Worlds. And one thing to note, there's no regional qualifiers this time around. So last season it was, or last 2 years it was, you qualify for the qualifiers and you play the qualifiers and then you qualify for the top cut of worlds, and only then can you play versus players of other regions. This time around you go straight to the top cut, which has a group stage and still everything, but you can play versus the players from other regions immediately, which is a plus in my book. But back to the thing. So there are 4 different ways to qualify, I guess. One has already passed by this point. It's the World Ender seasonal winners. That is the last seasonal ever. Plus the last world champion Aragorn. They're automatically qualified. Again, that train has passed, so we can't do that one anymore. You can win a World Qualifier Open, which directly gets you in there. Or this is a World's Last Chance Qualifier. That's a specific tournament that will be held after all the seasons are done, and obviously it's your last chance to get into the Worlds. Presumably it will be not something like a last chance gauntlet, but something like akin to a seasonals, like an actual tournament with high stakes, where people are going to try very hard to get into Worlds because it's there directly, right? And then you can get through points, which there's 2 ways. You either spike a season, 1 out of these 3, or overall the whole year, so all 3 seasons presumably, and you want to be the best in your region in either of the 2 ways, right? So let's say you were bad at season 1 and 2, then you have to do really good in season 3, be a top player only within that season, and then you can get in, or just have like a good overall average score. And as far as I know, the seasonal points are counted from all the 3 tournaments, your performance in them. Ladder has a slight impact on it, they said, because it no longer has like tiebreakers and stuff tied to tournaments, so this is their one way of making it relevant in the competitive scene. And they said potentially grassroots tournaments are going to have raid support as well to tie it into the system, but as it stands right now, it doesn't. So yeah, that's it. I personally like this whole outlay way more than the previous one. It really bothered me that ladder had such a high impact on Worlds previously, because people who never performed in any seasonals or anything could just like go straight to Worlds, which was kind of weird, because it's a whole different scenario and things, and you could just like grind for it instead of like being actually good. And that's kind of a best of 3 format, which is considered the most competitive one by most people, I would say. So I like the removal of that, or the impact of the ladder the impact that the ladder had on Worlds. And it just like seems more polished overall. I think it's just straight up upgraded old system in basically every aspect. I have written no complaints about it actually. So yeah, that's going to be it for this segment. Closing thoughts. Let's TLDR real quick. So we have daily rumbles, which are low stakes, pretty casual-ish events with like new fun formats that rotate weekly. There's a small entry fee which you have to pay. You can play once per day, and how they feed into the greater system is through prime glories, which you get off trophies based on how many wins you get in those daily rumbles. That whole system feeds into Runeterra Opens. Runeterra Opens are like the new seasonals, and they're once per month, and there are 3 of them in each season. We have 3 seasons in a year, I believe, and every second Runeterra Open of each season, so 3 of them total in a year, are going to be World Qualifier Opens instead of Runeterra Opens, and the difference there is probably slightly different rewards. Alongside of the person who wins that one gets qualified for Worlds directly. Otherwise, Runeterra Opens work similarly to seasonals. There's 2 days, or there's going to be 2 days once we leave the beta. Right now there's only 1, and if you would perform well enough in day 1, you get qualified for day 2. Day 2 is the one with monetary rewards, and there's no tiebreakers this time around based off a ladder, which is a good thing, but there's prime glories which feed in from daily rumbles, like I said, to replace that sort of thing. And then we have Worlds. Worlds is different in a way. There's no regional qualifiers this time around, so you get to play versus players from different regions sooner, which is a good thing. I didn't like the whole regional qualifiers thing, it was kind of weird. This time around you qualify directly for the top cut, and the ways to qualify are there's two ways through points, or you can win through just win the World Qualifier Open, the second Open each season, what we talked about. Either that or through points. Points are accumulated in each of the seasons, or overall in a year. You have to be one of the best in either of the two categories, and the points are based off of both the Opens, the the World Qualifier Open, slightly impacted by ladder, and they said there's a possibility of grassroots tournaments also impacted that, but that we have still yet to see that. That's the TLDR of the system. I like the improvements in the worlds, how worlds work, all the qualification stuff, no more qualifying for ladder. I love all of that. Runeterra rumbles or daily rumbles are fun. I like them more compared to gauntlets. Big improvements across the board. The Runeterra Opens are kind of weird. It feels like there's not enough incentive to play. Otherwise, it's slight improvements there as well. Overall, I like the changes. So let's go over the last thing we do. Let's go over these are the 4 goals that they stated are the main leading points of how they want to improve the system, where they want the game to go. So more competitive play opportunities. I think they didn't really completely deliver on this one. I was expecting for more like incentive to play, more different opportunities, stuff like that. We don't really have much in the way of that, because daily rumbles are just replacing gauntlets, and they're approximately the same level. So let's just assume that's same-ish. When we compare Runeterra Opens to the seasonals, they are more common technically, because these ones are once per month. It used to be one every 2 or 3 months, so they're technically more opportunities, but I would say that these are like slightly less competitive. And then worlds, still just worlds, right? One thing I forgot to mention for worlds qualification, I did mention in the segment, but here in the TLDR, another way to qualify for worlds is the last chance qualifier, which will be like a tournament at the end of the year after all 3 seasons are finished, which is your just last chance to get to worlds. Okay, back to the thing. So I think they didn't really deliver on the more competitive play opportunities. Fun and meaningful PvP for all skill levels. Sure, this one is really hard to gauge. I think more players of all skill levels are included in the competitive scene. I think the top end is slightly less incentivized, which is fine. That's the part that I think I'm at, like the top by investment, or yeah, I guess just investment, like how much you care about competitive stuff like that. And that part has been slightly neglected, I would say. But for more like casual, or let's just call them less invested players, opportunities have arisen because there's no barriers of entry and stuff to a lot of competitive events. Experience variety for new formats, I love it. Delivered fully. The daily rumbles are great. The formats are super fun. Love all of that. Could use more of it, but we'll see as the system develops. And prestigious rewards, well, they exist. I don't like how they work right now, because you just get a bunch of emblems on a 2-second loading screen along with a title, which is clipping weirdly into a thing, but presumably all of that gets fixed, and then we'll just have full prestigious rewards, which is obviously a huge plus. I always like incentives to play the game, because imagine playing for fun, lol. So yeah, that's it. I think they decently delivered on all of that, and again, this is all beta thoughts. We'll see how the system expands and evolves. We can't really be too judgmental now, at least I'm gonna try not to be such myself. And yeah, that is gonna be it for the video. Thank you guys for watching, and see you on the next episode of the vlog, or something else. Bye guys.